Thank you for staying. We'll be joined shortly by Suleiman Abrahima. He's Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. But right here, we'll start the review and get into the papers, find out what they have to share with us this morning, even as we dilate on other matters happening over the weekend into now. But this segment, of course, always brought to us by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. For Father's Day, I actually took a stroll to a hospital and had an interaction. And what an insightful one it was. Your health is your wealth. So check out your prostate, check out your fertility if you're a woman, and ensure that they are in tip-top shape. That is why you ought to make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering you these two for free. Here's where you can locate them. So here in Accra, they are located at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Energy State, there's Tema Community 22, there's Techiman Hanswa, and there's Siama and Zema. All you need to do now is give them a call, make a booking. And these are the numbers on which you can reach them. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the start of the news review. Now, a lot has happened over this past weekend, some of them very interesting developments. I've heard talk about the power arrangements that we entered, the purchase power agreements that we have had, and whether or not they were suited for purpose. I'd like to hear from you. So far, when you listen to the rhetoric, what happened then? The amounts or the sums of money expended and where we are currently. The fact being that while the energy minister on one end will say we will never get back into Dumso, all the energy analysts I have spoken to, 4, 5 of them, say it is right at our doorstep because our power generation is no longer in excess capacity. That was about 2 years ago. Now we need more capacity. Recently, Mr. President actually launched one of those. He opened up one of such facilities, but woefully inadequate in terms of providing for our needs. In the next 2, 3, 4 years, if we don't get it right, for me, my concern is having to go down that road again, feeling the pinch again. That is my problem. Even now, without that being our reality, look at the power outages in different parts of the country. Everywhere you go, not just in the Greater Accra region, in most parts of our country, there are some forms of power outages every now and then. I've been forced once more to buy a power bank in recent times. I got it just a few days ago. It's something I've planned doing for a while because you can never tell when the light will go off. And when, of course, you need to power your phone. I do a lot of my work on my phone. So there you have it. So you share your thinking with us in terms of what your expectations are concerning Dumso. I mean, some of us concluded it was a thing of the past. Now we're finding out it may not necessarily be that. Should we rest on the assurances that the energy minister is giving us? Or should we be looking more at what will be done to boost our power generation needs before we get some consolation? Share your thoughts with me via the live stream. The former president, Mahama, has also been talking about bad governance and the economic crisis. He's been sharing his thoughts on those. I'll be running some of those thoughts by our guest when he joins the conversation, Suleiman Abrahima, and we'll be looking into some of those issues. The final thing I want to throw your way and have you, sometimes I just want to hear from you on your thoughts on these matters. There's that land guard situation in Botiano where 5 people were shot dead by the Ghana Police Service. It's raised quite a conversation. You would have Rashid Pelpu on the side of the minority, Samuel Atachia on the side of the majority, pushing this for a parliamentary probe. Some have said that this is an intrusion into the work of the Ghana Police Service, while these two have parried those shots. But I want us to weigh the two sides. Land guardism itself has so many problems in terms of illegitimacy, illegality, and it is mired in a whole lot of negativity. People still do it anyway. But the fact is, like you would hear from the doyen of land law, immovable property law in Ghana, Kwame Jan, some of these people are land guards by day and they are armed robbers by night. Some sow terror in their communities. Others too are merely finding a way of eking out a living. So you put the two side by side. There are the criminal elements that we've seen over time. If you remember Ninja and all the stories from way back and how he, together with his colleague, were killed and buried under concrete. You would understand where I'm coming from. But on the other end, just because the police didn't get harmed, some have said that, well, if they say these people were firing at them, where is the harm? No one got harmed, so they are challenging the story. Let me know what you think, because in one breath, we have to check the police. There have been killings like the ones we saw in the Ashanti region. There have been killings of innocent people, sometimes with the state having to, give some funds as a sort of appeasement to these people. Of course, you cannot bring back human life. But on the other hand, are we pinning down the police for merely doing their work? Two thoughts for you to reflect on that matter. Let's get into the newspapers now. We have Suleimana Brahima joining the conversation. Suleimana, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. Thanks for having me.
I don't know whether you heard those issues that I started talking about, the issue of the land guards and the police vis-a-vis Parliament and what the approach should be, and then our power situation and how it keeps getting into, should I say, uncharted territories, because there is talk that, listen, we'll not go back to Doomsaw, but the reality on the ground from the experts shows that if we don't get things right with our power generation needs, we could be very close to that again. Do you have any thoughts on that before we get into the newspapers?
Well, first of all, the issue of the police and the land guards, or the suspected land guards, and the killing or the shooting of, is it 4 or 5 people in that incident. I think over time, people have made demands for the setting up of independent public investigative body into the activities of the police, especially in relation to matters like these. Because we've, on a number of occasions, have heard about someone having been killed or some people having been killed, and the reason is that maybe they were involved in some crime, and when the police were approaching, they started shooting, and the police decided to fire back. And in all cases, you have, casualties on the other side. I've raised it before, and I've always been told that, well, look, you don't know how many police officers die in a year in the course of duty. And it is the case that sometimes these incidents happen, and out of maybe the security measures that they have or their own policies in order not to demoralize officers, sometimes don't share this information with the public. And that, to the contrary, there are a lot of police officers who are also harmed in their line of duty. So I think it is worthwhile that Parliament wants to investigate the matter, or at least have an inquiry into the matter, because it's not the first time. There have been incidents like what happened in Tuaso, which the fourth estate, for example, investigated, and you would always have family members and relatives and friends who would say that, look, this person that they claim is a land guard or was involved in this activity is somebody that we know very well and is not somebody who could be said to have been engaged in an activity like that. So I think that the most important thing is to have the public inquiry or the parliamentary inquiry, as perhaps has been promised now, so that it wouldn't be like the police cannot be held accountable. I think police accountability is very, very critical. Last year, the Commission for Human Rights, for example, embarked on a project on police accountability, and I was privileged to be part of that engagement in terms of engaging the police on the media side. And so I think it's a matter that is of significant public interest and should be investigated as Parliament has promised to do. On the matter of Dumso, well, ordinarily, we would say that, look, if the managers of our country are saying that they have, a firm grip on the situation and we are not going back to Dumso, why would we be challenging or doubting them, even if we have contrary information? Unfortunately, as we all know, we do have leaders in place now who would say one thing and the other thing happens. And so it is difficult to believe what the government says when it's about, matters like these. But at this stage, we can only say, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that it wouldn't be a situation of, we won't go to the IMF today, we are visionary people, we know what to do, and then in 2 months, we are at the IMF, the doors of IMF, begging them. And we've seen quite a number of things like this. School kids will be provided with laptops, with notes instead of using, textbooks and so on. And then we start talking about it. So let's hope and pray, because this one, if their promise ends up being as usual, not being the truth, then we're going to be in a very, very difficult situation. But we don't wish for that. So let's pray that this time around, they are actually making a promise that is true.
Well, we're hoping and praying, but the only reason some of us would talk about these things is you cannot, realistically, I mean, in the faith, in religion, we hope it, we faith it, we wing it. But there are some things too that after you've applied the faith, you must apply work. And if that work doesn't come, then you're going to be in dire straits. So faith and hope, yes, but reality of putting in place the measures, that is another situation. Anyway, let's get into the newspapers now. The Daily Graphic. Government starts replacing bridges to open up farming communities. That story is on page 16. Afrexim Bank provides $10 billion for after adjustment fund. Then there is Graphic Courier marks 3 years. Well, hooray to that. And then there is the banner headline. Bailout results begin to show. Ofori-Atta courts public support for reforms. And that's the major story there. On the back page, Dreams FC win historic MTN FA Cup. The Daewoo-based side defeated King Faisal 2-0 to win their first ever MTN FA Cup. Of course, we are talking of Alhaji Gruza's King Faisal. Ampim Dakwa ladies retain women's FA Cup as well. And they triumphed over police ladies with a thrilling 3-1 victory in extra time, successfully defending their women's FA Cup title. Those are on the back page of the Daily Graphic. But let's get into the main stories here. We'll start from the banner headline. Bailout results begin to show. Ofori-Atta courts public support for reforms. And the approval of the International Monetary Fund program has started yielding positive outcomes. The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has stated and called on all Ghanaians to put their shoulders to the wheel to implement far-reaching reforms. He cited the positive outcomes to include decreases in the rate of inflation and treasury bills, improvements in foreign reserves, and the current account positions, but stressed that, quote, the real work of adjustments, realignments, and the return to a path of steady economic growth had just begun. Let us brace ourselves for the needed reforms, especially in expenditure control, non-arrears accumulation, revenue growth, ECG collections, and energy sector reforms in order to rebuild the walls of the Republic with urgency, Mr. Ofori-Atta added. Now, the finance minister said the reform program, the post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, that's the PCPEG, now supported by the 3-year extended credit facility arrangement with the IMF, was built on clear targets, strong policy, and structural measures. What's your quick take on this story? And by the way, he veers into energy as well. He insisted that the sector had been prioritized for comprehensive reforms to reduce the financing shortfall in the sector by at least $2.95 billion over the period. And he explained that the legacy debt in the energy sector reached about $2 billion as at the end of last month, and an estimated financing shortfall of $5.9 billion between 2023 and 2025 due to the current conditions of SOEs and the independent power producers in the value chain in the sector. Quick thoughts?
Well, for me, first of all, it's amazing that we still have Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta being the manager of our economy, or our finance minister for that matter. It's a major surprise that the government, President Akufo-Addo, still keeps Mr. Ofori-Atta as our finance manager. I don't know what the reasons are, given what we know from Parliament demanding his removal to a vote of censure on him. The president promising that, look, I beg you, please allow him to do the IMF thing, and after that, we would take the next step. And the person who told us we are not going to IMF today, tomorrow, trust me, we are this, we are that, then gets into IMF, starts begging. We have had pension bondholders, individual bondholders, picketing and being treated in ways that are certainly not dignified. And this person is still in charge of our economy and still making promises. Indeed.
But it's been said that he took us there. He should bring us out.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know how prudent that argument is. Because we're talking about the economy. We are not talking about, a football league where we say, oh, it is this coach who actually took us into relegation and he will bring us back into the Premier League. We are talking about a situation that has significant implications on lives and livelihood. And we cannot be gambling like that. Yes, the IMF's bailout, which they denied. When people were talking about the economy was in crisis, they say, no, we are facing challenges. This is not a crisis. They said, look, eventually you would have to go to IMF for bailout. They said, no, we will never go to IMF. Yes, the IMF money has come, and certainly it will improve our international reserves. Certainly it will have some impact and some cushion on the economy. And for me, that is no achievement. Me, I'm not an economist, but even if I were there and the IMF money were to come, these implications that he's talking about would have been realized. I don't think that it takes any magic to do that. Once the money comes in, your international reserves would improve. And the IMF would have given you monies with conditionalities. He's talking about the conditions that are getting improved on the fiscal side. But I'm sure that very soon we're going to get into the conditions that affect people negatively, in terms of the conditions that are attached to the bailout. And so if I were in government, I would rather be working towards mitigating people's apprehension, mitigating, the impact, the eventual impact on people, preparing the minds of people to know that this is what is ahead of us, rather than the usual thing of touting credentials and touting things that, seriously would not have any implications on the people. So for me, as I said, the strange thing is having Mr. Ofori-Atta still managing our economy. The message can only be credible as the messenger. And in this case, I don't think that I would give any credibility.
Are you saying Ken Ofori-Atta is not credible, and so the message is also not credible?
Well, but Ben, is it for me to say? It is not for me to say. I mean, the conduct, the acts, the speeches, the statements that have been made over time certainly has discredited our finance minister. It is not for me to say. It is not me saying that he's discredited. It is his own actions, his own statement, the way he's managed the economy that has discredited him. I'm just saying that the message can only be as credible as the messenger. And in this case, I wouldn't place any premium on whatever is said in terms of the economy and how well we are going to do and how well we are doing and so on and so forth. I'm not an economist, but of course, I live in the country and I live in the society, and I have family members, I have friends, and I know how everyone is complaining about cost of living, about how things are not going well, how farmers are complaining. Everyone is complaining. And so it's not for me to say. It is the situation and his own actions that has placed, that has discredited him.
How do you feel when he says this, though? I mean, sticking to what is fact and what is fiction. He says the positive outcomes, why he is saying that the bailout results are beginning to show, are the positive outcomes, including decreases in the rate of inflation. Inflation has gone down, though, I mean, recently it went up again for the month of May, but it has slowed down. Then there is treasury bills, improvement in foreign reserve, and the current account positions. These are all factual, aren't they?
Well, they are. So, as I said, certainly once the money hit the accounts, even if I, a non-economist, was in charge of the economy, certainly these are automatic things. It is not somebody's actions or any policies that have been implemented. Man, if you were put there as the finance minister, immediately the IMF deal was signed and the money came. In fact, immediately the IMF deal was signed, there would be some implication and positive implications on the economy in terms of external partners getting back confidence that okay, with this injection of capital and now the IMF involvement, I mean certainly there will be some actions that will be taken that will
in other words, this required no skill at all. It didn't require anything. Exactly.
That's what it is. It's almost like placing a football in the penalty box and no goalkeeper in the post. I mean, and then you score and say, we are doing well. I don't think that is really what it is. As I said, the most important thing is to prepare the minds of people that look, yes, these things are happening, but the implications are going to be there. Employment cuts. We are told, there's not going to be salary adjustments and all the other things that they need to let people know so that people are aware. They are not saying them. I think that is what is important, rather than to wait and then things begin to happen and people start to agitate. As for the things that have happened, treasury bill, interest rates, inflation, creditors having confidence and all of that, these are automatic stuff. If you put anybody there with an IMF bailout. In fact, so what it means is that the IMF is currently in charge of our economy. And with the IMF being in charge, creditors will have confidence, our reserves would improve somehow, inflation coming down is normal, interest rates, coming down, treasury bill rates coming down is normal. But for me, as I said, the strangest thing is Ms. Ofori-Atta still being in charge of our economy. And how would individuals have confidence in the management of the economy? The same person who took us where we were and was being told, look, we are getting into crisis. The borrowing is too much. The borrowing is too much. And people will tell you, we have borrowed and we don't see anything. Go to, the place that was supposed to be like General Hospital, $60 million. What is there? I mean, the money has come, but what is there? Where did all the money go? We talk about COVID and the impact. Where did all the COVID money go? The Auditor General revealed a lot of scandalous things that were done. We are still looking on. Is Ms. Ofori-Atta in charge? And so, like I said, the message can only be as credible as the messenger. If the messenger is credible, yes, the message will take it in in good faith. But given what we know, given the record, I don't think that I will place any significant premium on whatever promises are made.
All right. Let's make tracks now. Go to page 16 of the Daily Graphic. Graphic Courier marks 3 years. Kudos to them for that feat. And then government starts replacing bridges to open up farming communities. Now, the Minister of Roads and Highways, Kwesi Amoako-Atta, has indicated that the government is making efforts to replace deteriorated bridges in the country to, quote, open up communities which hitherto were cut off due to water crossing points. He said already 50 checked steel bridges with a total span of 1,500 meters secured through Messrs. Knights AS were being fixed across the country. Of the 50 bridges which were provided through support from the Czech government, 34 had been launched while 10 were substantially complete and ready for use. The 10 include the Okwenya and Community 12 bridges. This came to light when the minister led a delegation to the Czech Republic at the invitation of Messrs. Knights AS to discuss the progress of the installation of 50 steel bridges in Ghana by that outfit. And Mr. Ofori-Atta mentioned some of the substantially completed bridges, to include the bridge over the stream at Taifa Dome in the Greater Accra region, the bridge over the Okrudu stream at Bomete in the Central region, and over the Brim River on the Akim Mampong at Asawasi Road in the Eastern region. I think these are important bits to make mention of, especially in light of some of those communities with water bodies and what we've seen over the last few months. In January, when there was that drowning, recently as well. So at least these will forestall some of those challenges. On page 17, politics, there is a compilation of thoughts by different people. I see a lecturer here, a development professional, a research assistant, among others, sharing their thoughts on bad roads and some stretches of our roads. Look, I always say that there is the human element to accidents that happen on our roads, but some stretches of our roads, even if you don't end up, colliding with someone or getting into a tight scrape, the work they do on your car, every day you get into some places, no matter how you slow down, it just goes, your shocks and all of that. You'll be going to the mechanic far more often. And looking at the economy, it can only sow mayhem in your pocket. So bridges, if you have any thoughts on bad roads, but let me take your thoughts on those before I get into more political stories. Rally behind NDC to win Asin North, that's according to former President Mahama. And then I have my own vision for Ghana, that's according to Baumia. Some have said that, having served under Akufo-Addo, what substantially will change? Maybe we can just add those for reflection. Mahama says, rally behind NDC to win Asin North. We saw that incident there where a few people were injured. And then in this one, I have my own vision for Ghana. That's Baumia saying so. What are your thoughts?
Well, the stories about the bridges, I think that is a very important and positive development. Is a major problem in many communities across the country. And so it is great that the government is paying attention to that and has already commenced the construction of a number of bridges. That's really a positive development that we should commend the government for. I only hope that more of those bridges will be constructed, and in doing so, there would be value for money. Quite often, governments over the years would do certain interventions, and you realize that, this money could have done, let's say, 2 or 3 of the same facilities. And so it turns out to become ventures for making money rather than really and truly a community development initiative. But otherwise, I think it's important that these bridges are done because they pose a lot of problems for many communities across the country. Before I get into the political ones, I just want to say that I'm quite sad that King Faisal couldn't win the FA Cup because King Faisal, my team actually in Ghana. I support. Unfortunately, they've not been doing quite well. I think that one of these days I will have to meet with Alhaji Bruza so that we can really strategize and how to mobilize a lot of support for the team to be able to get back on its feet as it used to be. Now, Asin North, I think it's a very, very tight one. It's not a seat that you would say is an NDC seat or MPP seat. It's a very competitive area because prior to Chikweson's win in 2020, the MP there was an MPP MP. And so it's a tight one. For me, what's important is that they focus on issues, debate the issues appropriately so that the election would end up being as peaceful as we all want it. So we don't have Ayawaso West Part 2, but rather we would have what happened, let's say, in Kumewu, in Asin North. People have talked about money, buying of votes, and so on. Unfortunately, that is where our politics has gotten to. I hope that going forward, we would be able to work towards reducing the money in our politics so that people who deserve to be elected will be the ones elected, and those who don't have the capacity, the resources, the money, and so on. And especially, we can have more women into our political spaces, in parliament, in the executive, even at the local level, in district assemblies, and so on. Dr. Bawumia has his own vision. I don't doubt that. I believe that, he certainly would have his own agenda if he were to become president in January 2025.
In fact, if I may just intervene and tell you exactly what he says. He says, quote, "I also have my own vision for Ghana. I believe that it is time to move Ghana to the next level by building on the foundations we have put in place so far."
Well, as a country, yes, we've made some progress. If you visit other countries around us, you realize Ghana has made some progress. And as I said, I believe if he becomes president, he will have his own agenda. I don't think that he's going to say that what is happening is what is going to be repeated. I honestly think that Dr. Bawumia should be disappointed in some of the things that have happened under their leadership, under the leadership of President Ekufo with him as vice president. If he would be candid, he would tell you that corruption has gone very, very high. He would tell you that this is not competence. What we have experienced so far is not the competence that he talked about. If he begins to say, oh, well, we've given you competent leadership over the last 8 years, I certainly would be very, very surprised. And that would mean that maybe he would not be the person worthy to lead this country into the future. Because what we've witnessed over the last 8 years has been a significant disappointment, a major disappointment. And anybody who is candid and honest will tell you that, no, this is not the kind of leadership that we would want to have. On all fronts, on human rights, on free speech, on the economy, on literally every sector has been impacted negatively. Yes, COVID, has affected almost every country. Russia, Ukraine has had some impact on every country, but there are countries that are really managing to weather the storm and are not going through what we have gone through. And people would appreciate it if indeed we have genuine challenges, but not a challenge that people are looting from, a challenge that is making people rich. And over the period, you've seen a government that is just intolerant, a government that would not listen to the people, a government that is almost becoming autocratic. This is not the kind of leadership that Ghana deserves. And I believe that, yes, he would have his own agenda, and it may be a departure from what we have witnessed over the last 5-6 years.
Right. Let's get into some other interesting stories. The Daily Guide newspaper. And I've noticed, though, that some newspapers carry more of a certain presidential aspirant. And, well, it is what it is. Airlift stars, Accra Hajj airlift starts, and then Bawumia hits ground running. No prison term for we smokers. That story on page 6. Okwe vets NPP presidential aspirants, and then allegations against our win chief bogus. Let's get into some of those stories now. And the chiefs of our win traditional area in the Western North region have dismissed a series of claims leveled by some people in the area against the Omanhene of our win, Beyeman Tanokwao Bemboin III. They were especially concerned with the claims of one Louis Yamwa, also known as Nana Kwame Nkansa II, and Odikro of Jomoro in the Awawin traditional area, who claimed to be the divisional chief. They claimed that the Odikro had accused the Omanhene of engaging in criminal actions such as misapplying timber revenue meant for the traditional council, among others. They emphasized that the fabricated claims were intended to discredit and weaken the Omanhene's persona in the eyes of the people. That's our first story. Then, Okwe vets NPP presidential aspirants, and after careful deliberation and consideration, the NPP has finally established its vetting committee, which will be responsible for examining and approving presidential aspirants seeking to lead the party for the 2024 general election. The committee is expected to start work from July 3rd to the 6th, 2023. So far, 11 aspiring presidential hopefuls have picked nomination forms, with only 2 filing as of Friday, June the 16th, 2023. I'll take this international story before I get into LGBT matters. And woman dies days after being found alive in coffin. Now, an Ecuadorian woman has died days after mourners at her funeral were shocked to find her alive in her coffin. Bella Montaya, or Bella Montaya as you would say in Spanish, 76, was first declared dead by a doctor at a hospital in the city of Bobahoyo last week. But when mourners attending her wake heard her knocking on her coffin, she was immediately rushed back to the same hospital for treatment. After 7 days in intensive care, Ecuador's health ministry confirmed she died on Friday from an ischemic stroke. What a way to go. What a way to go. And finally, the LGBT stories. So Parliament slapped with new anti-gay suit. A new lawsuit has been launched against the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values bill, generally known as the anti-gay bill, drawing Parliament into a new legal debate or battle. This comes after a resident of the Ashanti region, Paul Boamasefa, sued the Attorney General, Godfrey Adame, and the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, over the same bill. In a writ, Mr. Sefa claimed that the Speaker and Attorney General had breached the Constitution with their handling of the bill. But tied to that, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, that new movie, has been banned in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, after failing to pass the country's censorship requirements. This comes after a week ahead of the film's intended release in the region. According to Variety, the reason behind the ban could be due to a scene featuring a poster background that depicts the transgender flag and reads, "Protect Trans Lives." So two different ends of the conversation. Any thoughts on these?
Well, first on the LGBTQ conversation, I think as a country, it's an important matter, and it's good that there is a lot of debate about it. It's good that people are seeking to have legal redress. I believe that in the end, if our parliament decides to pass a law, it must be a piece of legislation that is positive, progressive, and seriously and truly guarantees the fundamental rights that our constitution provides for our people and, of course, persons who live in Ghana. I think we want the best for our country, and that can only happen when matters such as these are thoroughly probed, debated. If there are legal issues, they are addressed, so that at the end of the day, we would have the best mechanisms to govern our country, to govern our conduct, and to shape our society in ways that are progressive, but at the same time wouldn't undermine the fundamental rights of everyone. On Dr. Bawumia hits the ground. Of course, we all knew that he's going to be running, and it is no secret that Dr. Bawumia is the system's candidate. And when I say the system's candidate, obviously he is the candidate that President Akufo-Addo and the government machinery is backing. I only can wish every candidate well. You listen to everyone and you feel, okay, well, why not? Let them try. At the end of the day, whoever the MPP candidates will settle on, President Mahama is already a candidate for the NDC. I'm hoping that maybe there could be one or two independent candidates and candidates from other political parties. That makes our democracy strong. What is happening in the MPP is part of the democratic strengthening mechanism, where there is internal competition, intra-party internal competition, right, which I think is quite a positive thing. And so I can only wish everyone well and hope that we have a peaceful process in electing a flag bearer from the governing MPP. That's what I would say to those stories.
All right, just to wrap the conversation, two stories. Many of the other stories I am seeing have already been mentioned, so I will not rehash them. But the Finder newspaper, I think this is worth talking about and celebrating. Asase Foundation, the Asase Group, donates dialysis machines, urges NHIS to cover kidney treatment. So the group chairman of Asase Broadcasting Company, Mr. Gabi Asari-Otridako, has appealed to the Ghana Health Service and the National Health Insurance Authority to explore avenues to make kidney care services affordable for Ghanaians. In fact, if you look at the Ghanaian publisher, it also says, let's make kidney care affordable. And with those donations, I think they are in order. So we celebrate them at least for that. The Economy Times, banking sector fraud climbs up, depositors to lose 56 million Ghana cedis. CD posts positive outlook. But this one, gold for oil deal suffers critical scrutiny. Government told to take a second look at it. And it has faced critical scrutiny by stakeholders challenging the government's whitewashing claims that the policy as implemented had been a success. Newest to add his voice to the critics is an energy strategist who is advising government to take a second look at the gold for oil program. Any final thoughts, Suleimana?
Well, gold for oil. Once again, another policy that the government, and I think on this particular one, Dr. Bagomia made us have so much hope that, petrol prices were going to really come down. I was expecting that we'll be buying petrol or diesel in single digits per liter. But really, what has been the impact? I don't know. Except if people would say that, look, but for the gold for oil policy, we would have been buying petrol at 20 cedis per liter. I doubt that would have happened. And so it's one policy that was so much touted. It was almost made for one to feel as if, yes, here's another magic from the government and from Dr. for example. But Ben, I think that we are in what we were in. I don't think that there has been any major implication for me. And if there's a way of reviewing it, and if it is impacting on the other side negatively on our minerals or revenues from our gold resource, it's certainly something that has to be looked at again.
Right.
Absolutely. The donation, I want to commend Gabi and his group for the donation. That's great, and to ask and urge a lot more Ghanaians to have that philanthropic spirit to do more for our country. In terms of the health sector, is one of the major problematic areas. Last week or so, I mentioned that the whole of the northern sector, the 5 regions of the north, not a single hospital has an MRI machine. And that for me is a tragedy. What does it take for the government to procure an MRI machine? Right. It only takes the monies that are looted daily. In a single day, the money that we lose can perhaps buy 2-3 MRI machines for at least the regional hospitals.
So we should basically do more in that regard and not just rely on philanthropy. Right. Exactly. Mr. Braima, thank you so much for joining us this morning for the conversation. As always, we wish you the very best. And on the drive you've started about hate speech and all of that, kudos to you. Keep it up. God bless.
Thank you so much, Ben. Have a great week.
Same to you. As we go and give way to sports, Wallace Hudson, you're one wonderful human being. I celebrate you. Thank you for being that fantastic person. I don't want to get you blushing this morning. Wallace Hudson in Tennessee. Happy birthday to Newton Kacheku, the Executive Director, Ghana Association of Persons with Albinism. You say, today is my birthday. I pray that my life continues to blossom and sprout with joy and humility. May the good Lord bless me abundantly as I journey through life. My wish for myself is eternal happiness and prosperity. May God grant you that, Mr. Kacheku. Mrs. Bertha Brown of Odoko, from your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and all of us at the Multimedia Group, we celebrate you, Mrs. Brown. Belated happy birthday to Mr. Kwame Champonche, founder of the Glyco Group of companies, from all of us at the Multimedia Group Limited. As I wrap, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is offering you those services for prostate screening, fertility screening. Just call them on these numbers, get a booking, and reach them anywhere across Ghana. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports up next.